Hey guys, it's AC. Welcome to my house. This is exciting. I'm talking to Lauren today from Adulting is Easy. We met. I was on her show and became a big fan of her show. And it's called Adulting is Easy. And so we're going to pick her brain about how she got into personal finance, real estate investing, all that fun stuff in her early 20s and learning to be an adult. And she's in the Tampa Bay area. And we'll get her full story, but some vacation rentals, some long-term rentals, some small multifamily, a little bit of commercial deals thrown in there. And I think we're going to learn a lot. The biggest thing you're going to learn is how to do it all while balancing a 9 to 5 job. So she still has a full-time job. She's been building up. I think she's in double digits in number of doors and rentals, all through having a podcast that she does in her spare time outside her work and investing outside of her spare time. So we're going to figure out how she balances it and how you can do it too. You're going to have to make some sacrifices to get the results, and she's definitely getting the results. And we're going to learn her story. Before we get started, I want to thank our sponsors, JasmineMortgageTeam.com. I personally use Jasmine for my own mortgages and investments, fix and flips, home renovation projects, small multifamilies, cash out refis. I've done it all with JasmineMortgageTeam.com. So please check it out. There's a link at Linktree/the House of AC, and you'll go straight to a referral form where it's takes 5 minutes to fill out, and we'll figure out she'll figure out what money you have available to you for your next real estate investment. A little housekeeping on the House of AC. I am working on a bunch of other projects, and it's difficult for me to commit to the exact same time every single day to do my daily live stream as much as it pains me. So what I'm going to be doing is probably recording these in off hours and then slowly releasing them 2 or 3 times a week moving forward. But my goal is to get back onto a daily pace. I know I've been putting out a lot of content. It's difficult to digest it all, but bear with me. It's all a means to the end. It's to make improvements to the show and to grow the show. So thanks for tuning in. I appreciate your likes, your comments, your follows on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. You can watch all these videos later on YouTube. So please tune in. With that being said, let's bring Lauren into the stream. Welcome to my house, Lauren.
Thanks for having me over, AC.
Yeah. So this is great. And congrats on all your success. You've almost hit the 100 episode plateau at Adulting is Easy. Were you aware of that?
Yeah, I noticed that this morning. We've been doing live Twitter spaces weekly, and that really sped everything up. So I'm putting out 2 episodes a month, and then we have 4 spaces a month that are going out. So it's been fun, and I'm excited for it to hit 100.
That's a huge milestone. I didn't truly appreciate 100 episodes until I started doing this myself. And man, it's you make it seem so easy. But now that I'm behind the scene, it's a lot of work.
It is.
So let's talk about how the concept of like, when did the inspiration of Adulting is Easy hit you and made you decide like, hey, we're all going through this in our 20s, learning how to be an adult. Like, how did that all come about?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever talked about this even on my podcast, but I used to sell corporate. I still sell training, but I used to sell specifically business acumen or business finance training. And I was writing a blog for that job, and it was kind of about personal finance too, and how it relates to business finance. And as I was writing it, it got to be really, really, really long. And I finally was like, this is not one blog. This is a series of blogs. And I kind of went a different direction for my job and just kind of saved that, and ended up being like 10 pages long, bunch of different topics. And so I saved that, but then I looked at Twitter to see if the title Adulting is Easy was available, and it was. And so I kind of just scooped up that Twitter handle, and a year and a half later started the blog. And the idea was, I'm 13 years older than my little sister. And so the idea was, let me teach her about personal finance. So that's how it started. Eventually went from a blog to more of a podcast. And then she got busy, went to college, and I started interviewing people like yourself. And you were on episode 54 of mine. I looked that up.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, I was halfway. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how, that's kind of how it started. It's certainly evolved over time.
So for this day job, did you already have an interest and you understood personal finance, or were you basically forced to learn personal finance in order to write this blog for the company that you worked for?
I really became interested. I mean, I'm a numbers person. That's why I got a finance degree. But in
Okay.
terms of personal finance, it was really just through myself. And when I bought my first house, I went under contract at 22 and closed on it at 23. And a couple of years later, I was in sales. I was making, six figures for the first time. And I just started thinking, how much is my house worth? And I realized I had six-figure net worth in my mid 20s and a six-figure job. And I thought, wonder what kind of damage I could do if I really knew about personal finance and I really knew what I was doing, because I was doing pretty good accidentally.
Yeah.
So I already kind of knew a little bit about it. But of course, anytime you're writing, teaching, talking, interviewing about this stuff, you're learning.
Right. Right. So, yeah. So now you still have your day job, right?
Sure do.
It is what are your goals? Are your goals to live off real estate income, to keep your day job because you enjoy it as long as possible and supplement it? Because was it 18 doors that you have now?
We have 12.
12 doors. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So the goal is certainly to leave my 9 to 5 job and manage the real estate. My husband is an engineer, so he has a full-time job, and he's actually he just recently became a part owner of his engineering firm. So we're really kind of focused on him keeping his job and me transitioning to managing the real estate. Even with that, I know we'll probably get into this, but most of our doors are short-term rentals, which is a lot of work, especially when you compare it to long-term rentals or true passive income like stocks or something like that. So even once I quit my job, I may need to hire someone, an assistant or somebody to help me with the messaging and things like that.
So yeah, let's talk about this because I did for like a year and a half, did some short-term rentals, and
Mhm.
you're running a hotel. It's in and out, changing, guests coming for 2 or 3 days. You're changing sheets and cleaning. If there's an issue, you got to fix it right away to get that 5-star review. I can't imagine doing that with a full-time job. How's that been? How are you balancing?
It's a challenge. So right now we're at 8 short-term rentals, and just to be completely transparent with everybody, that includes my primary residence. Someone is renting it right now, though, so I'm at a different one of ours that's not rented, and a camper. So that's kind of just part of the mix. So it's kind of like 10 doors, kind of like 12 doors. But anyways, um, eight's a lot. We bought a 6-unit apartment building. I'm in one of those apartments right now in December of 2021. And we just went live with 2 short-term rentals a couple of weeks ago. And we're going to add one more here soon. So it's going to be half and half long-term, half short-term. And so I said that because it's an ever-changing environment that I am in, right? As of a month and a half ago, I had 5 listings, now I'm about to have 8. So that changes things a lot. But yeah, it's a lot of work. I'm very lucky to have a flexible job. I work remotely. My husband does as well. And so typically kind of in between meetings and things, I can respond to guest messages, right? So say I have an hour-long meeting, as long as I'm not back to back to back, a couple of minutes. Hey, where's this? Hey, where's that? Hey, how do I work the Nest thermostat? Hey, there's a QR code 3 inches from it. Why don't you try that? Things like that. And so for the most part, I can do that. I don't do the cleaning myself. I have a cleaner who actually manages all 8 rentals in terms of cleans, and she's very good. I do order supplies and things like that. And if I'm ever like traveling, like I went to a conference last week for work, and my husband kind of had to step up and handle those things.
Yeah. Is there a term for this that where almost like you're rental hopping? Like I had a previous guest, Robert Leonard, on the show, and he had a camper in his driveway and a duplex, and whatever he would rent out all 3, and whatever one was available, he'd move into the other spot. Are you aware of a term for that?
I haven't heard of that. I just met someone who does
Yeah,
the same thing. They
rental
retired, or they
hopping.
were like 27, 28, and they do the same thing. They'll rent everything. And if everything rents,
Yeah.
they'll go stay somewhere else and like basically go on vacation.
Yeah, it's like I want to come up with a term like rental jumping or something like that, because
Yeah.
you're maximizing your income that way. You're being very nomadic. Everything's furnished. I guess you just have a go bag of personal items, or you lock up a personal items in each closet in each house or something.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
all your places are sort of in the Tampa Bay area, right? And I guess you work from remote, so it could be kind of enjoyable to kind of drive and check out your properties.
It's fun. It's a little challenging. I'm a little more comfortable with it than my husband is. We're very new to this. We've only been doing
Yes.
this a couple of months, but he's like, where's that thing? It's always in the wrong place. So there are some frustrations, but it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of challenging yourself. It's a lot of learning to do with what you have. And there's a minimalist lifestyle to it. And so I kind of enjoy challenging myself in those ways.
Do you use your camper as an Airbnb as well, or is something that you rent out on RV shares and things like that?
It's an Airbnb. It stays in our driveway.
Okay.
We bought the bed and breakfast that we bought in Tarpon Springs has a camper in the driveway because we replaced a mobile home that was in the driveway.
Gotcha.
And so there's electrical and sewer already.
Yeah.
And so we do rent that out during season, which is it's like high season right now in Florida. It stays in our driveway, and then kind of summer and fall we'll use it ourselves.
No, I love that. I just love trying to find where you can squeeze an extra $100 out of every property. Parking an RV in the driveway, that's genius. And I would imagine that's way more than $100 profit for you.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a 2020, and it's now March 2022, and it's paid for itself.
Yeah.
So
yeah. 2 years free camper, and it's just cash flows moving forward. So that 6-unit building you bought, all 6 units in Airbnb?
Half and half.
Okay.
So it has 3 1-bedrooms, well, 2 1-bedrooms and a studio, and then 3 2-bedrooms. We took the 2 bedrooms and converted them from long-term rentals to short-term rentals. And then the 1-bedrooms are all still long-term rentals right now.
Wow. Yeah. So you've got your plate full, and you have time to do an amazing podcast at Adulting is Easy, and also be in this show and keep your 9-to-5 job. So kudos to you. That's, to me, that's going to pay off. Like, you make those sacrifices early, like I said at the top of the show, and then the payoff is huge when you get older. Do your friends look at you and think you're crazy? Do they find, because in my world, you're inspirational, but what sort of reactions are you getting?
Our friends seem to truly, truly understand. We didn't have any short-term rentals until 2020. At the beginning of 2020, we had a primary residence and a duplex that was a long-term rental. So this has all really happened in the last 2 years, and our friends have been fantastic. They understand, like, hey, Lauren and Eric are not around to play volleyball this week because they're at their 6-unit building getting it ready, or they're here, or they're there. I get a little, and they're our age. Most of our friends obviously are going to be our contemporaries, so they, I think, understand remote work, understand moving around, understand traveling. We get some weirder looks and some weirder comments kind of from older family members. Like, I think our parents are getting used to it, but some of our aunts and uncles, I think it's kind of weird.
Yeah. So I want to switch gears a little bit, because I really could talk real estate all day, but you're also a big proponent on index funds and other sorts of investing too. Like, you seem to be very balanced in that way. Can you share a little bit more about your recommendations and how you're doing other investments, and it's not all Airbnbs?
Yeah, sure. A lot of my friends that are into real estate, they are like 90% into real estate, right?
Yep.
That's from a net worth perspective. And my husband and I, we set out with a goal of being 50% real estate, and then 50%, stocks and bonds. We have a teeny tiny bit of bonds, but now with the equity in his engineering firm, we're actually about 50% real estate, 40% stocks, about 10% is the equity, the private equity, I guess, in the engineering firm. We have a lot of money in our retirement accounts. We started off very early on, from, like I said, when I got into personal finance, I was like 24 probably when I opened my first, opened my Roth, and when I started my 401k and things like that. And so when I was 25, I met my husband, and he was 22, and I was like, so, like, what are you doing for retirement stuff? And got him all into it too. So we were very young when we started contributing to those accounts. And at first, that was really it. That was where all of the savings went. Over time, as we've increased our income and decreased our living expenses, because we've really done a good job of doing both, we've had the ability to max those accounts. And then even after we started maxing the accounts, after a little while, there was even more money. And so that's when we really started kind of doing more with real estate. I said all that because we aren't contributing as much to our retirement anymore, because we've done the math, and I'm 32, he's 29. We're both doing about 5% into our 401ks, and that we're going to have, multiple millions by the time we're 59 and a half. So We're now focusing more on, we think we have the real estate mix that we would like. We certainly have, I think, as many as we can have and keep our jobs.
Right.
And we're contributing more to our brokerage account now, which is, for everybody, for listeners, that's after tax, right? There's some tax benefits to your retirement accounts, whether that's 401k, which is going to be pre-tax, or Roth IRA, which is post-tax. Brokerage, everything's taxable. The money before you put it in, the gains, and also when you take it out. So we're focusing on that right now. Everything, we don't have any individual stocks. We have pretty much everything is in Vanguard. Not our 401ks, they're with our companies, but our Roth IRAs and our brokerages in Vanguard. We're big fans of VOO, which is the S&P 500 index, or total stock index, VTI. We have some other things, like I think we have a little bit of consumer staples. Like I said, I've got a little bit of a bond fund and things like that, but that's kind of our general mix.
And are you doing any crypto?
We have like $7,000 in crypto.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? Actually, I haven't checked today. It could be
Right.
10. It could be 3. I have no idea. But
Yeah,
just a little bit.
No, I've recently, really got deep into crypto. I think it's going to take a while for it to play out, but if you just plant those seeds now, and I think you're doing it right. Like it sounds like if you lose $7,000, your life's really not going to be affected,
No,
right?
1%
Yeah.
is our goal, and that's less than 1% of our net worth, but
Yeah.
that's our eventual goal.
Yeah. But it's such an asymmetrical bet that $7,000 could turn into $1 million by itself, right?
Exactly.
Like it could go. You might as well. It doesn't hurt to try if you have money that. I hate to call it gambling, but it's a speculative investment. It's got legs. There's a lot of people, a lot of companies, public companies, putting their money into crypto.
Yep.
So it's building legitimacy. I think it's just going to take the government, identifying it as a security or some sort of regulation of how we're going to treat this, how we're going to tax this, how we're going to use this. And I think it's really going to have legs. But, my gut is it's going to get legs in other countries first. Yeah. Doesn't mean it's not worth investing in, because if other customers, worst case scenario, I can travel those countries and spend it or invest it or trade it out of some sort. So it's really gonna. I think it's going to be a disruption. It's just curious to see where that disruption is going to occur.
Exactly.
Yeah, because have you run into getting financing for your Airbnbs? I'm going to bring this back to crypto eventually, but from what I understand, that can be very tricky.
Right. Well, as we've talked about, my husband and I both have jobs, and we're pretty high earners, so we have pretty good W-2 income. Yep. So we have 3 properties. So the first 2 are financed conventionally using our W-2s and assuming no income. We didn't even need to assume any income from those properties to be able to, according to the lender, service those loans ourselves with our jobs. So we haven't had to deal with that. The 6-unit apartment building that I'm sitting in, we did seller financing. So again, there were no issues with proving income there.
Okay. Yes, because a lot of times, if you're new to this, if you're looking to go, hey, I want to go buy a vacation rental in Florida, and then you say, listen, the previous owner has it as an Airbnb. It's making $4,000 a month. Yeah. Most traditional lenders can't accept that Airbnb. It's just new income. It feels risky. It's short term, unless it's. Sometimes I've seen some, like if it shows up on your own tax returns as 2 years, then they're like, okay, this is steady income. But if you're just going into initial investment, you typically have to do it finance like you did through your income alone, buy it as a second home or completely as an investment property. And then it's appraised as if you were going to do long-term tenants in it. Yeah. And your loan will be based on the numbers of a long-term tenant, which is probably less than an Airbnb numbers. You have to do that to acquire the property, and then you can switch it to an Airbnb. But the way I was going to bring that back is I think crypto is going to change some of that, because what I'm seeing now, some of the products in the crypto world is a company, like there's one that's Milo that's starting up in the United States. There's one called Lindell in Canada, where they're working out the products. It's not completely launched yet, but let's say you've got $200,000 in crypto in some fashion, Bitcoin, Ethereum. You can stake it with this company, and they will give you half that, 50%, $100,000 to go buy real estate with. sort of as you buy it in full or as your down payment. So I think there's going to be really creative ways to maybe fund some of these Airbnbs, or maybe it's buying an RV or whatever it is, these unique ways to turn typical liabilities into high paying assets. So
Yep.
I go on a little tangent there just to say, don't completely discount it. I know I get a lot of laughs when I tell people about, at least older people, about take crypto seriously, but I really think there's going to be a place for it in the future.
Agreed.
It'll be
Agreed. I
interesting.
don't know. Real estate is, we've talked a little bit on our weekly spaces that we do on Twitter about like tokenized real estate too, which I like the idea, then somebody can get into real estate investing for a very small amount of money and things like that. So there's some interesting things going on there too. I don't know that I would, that I'm going to get into tokenized real estate again, because of the balance of my portfolio. It's about where I want it to be. So I don't know. And the real estate is appreciating pretty quickly, especially in, Florida, Tampa Bay area, thanks Tom Brady or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I will get into it, but I like the idea of tokenized real estate and things like that also for, young investors.
So how do you explain tokenized real estate?
So a company, so the tokenized real estate, my understanding is there could be, like, say, a single family home, and it would need to be held in an LLC. And then you can buy, and I think it's in $50 increments, a piece of that LLC. You're not actually buying the real estate. You're buying the LLC in $50 increments. And then you were paid out, rent or whatever. And you can look, and there's like a prospectus. It's like, here's the rent we anticipate. Here's the appreciation we anticipate, and things like that. And you can buy it in $50 chunks.
Okay, so it's like shares of a company. You're buying shares of a company.
Yeah.
I've also heard this where you can buy basically tokens of the debt. So if you think of it as you're buying a $500,000 house, someone's putting $100,000 down, and they need a $400,000 mortgage. You can buy like $10,000 tranches of that debt, and whatever the debt terms are, 30-year fix for 6%, and then you get 6% return on your money. And
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
Do
can
you
get
hold
in.
any mortgages? Are you
Yeah.
holding anything?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. I love mortgages. I don't think anyone should ever have a paid off rental property.
Oh
Like,
no, I meant like
oh,
as the lender. Like, have you ever owner
oh,
financed
yes,
anything like that?
I have been sort of like on a seller lending side, just to kind of get rid of property. The numbers aren't good. It's safe. It's like a bond, but
Yeah.
it's not an appreciating asset. It's a depreciation
Right.
as they pay
Right.
down the principal, right?
Right.
And if I wanted to get out of it, you have to sell it at a discount. But how about you?
Not yet, but that kind of is our plan, I think, with this building. It's commercial terms, right? I said
Yeah.
it's seller financing, but it's commercial terms. So there's a 7-year balloon on it. And our goal is to have it paid off in those 7 years. And then maybe as part of our retirement, if we don't want to do short-term rentals anymore, or maybe we don't want to switch it to long-term rentals, maybe we sell it as an owner financing situation, like you said, as a bond for, some sort of guaranteed amount. And that might make it easier to sell maybe, and things like that. And it's worked out really well for us. It'd be nice to do that for somebody, but that's why I was curious.
Yeah. I mean, for your situation, well, this is what I love about commercial loans. The way you get commercial lending is it's completely based on the income of the property. They don't look at comps like you would in 4 units or fewer. Residential, they look at other similarly priced properties. So if you've got a triplex, that's exactly the same as the triplex next door, but you're making $5,000 more than the landlord next door, they're worth the same to the lender's and appraiser's eyes, residential side. But on the commercial, because you've got that RV or possibly or you're doing some short-term rentals with some mixed long-term rentals, you're really juicing those numbers. You could do a cash out refi probably right now, pay off most of the owner note and pull out a ton of money tax free and reallocate that into real estate, right?
I know that's crossed our mind. A mentor of mine is where I've learned a lot of the short-term rental stuff from. And she has, I think it's also a 6-unit, maybe an 8-unit, but she's doing the same thing where she bought it as a long-term and is, systematically flipping it to short-term. And the plan is cash out refi, double the value of it, and cash out refi after 2 years and keep going.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Our idea is theoretically we're going to stop. We're going to be
Yeah.
able to cash flow $100,000 a year from what we've got, and we're going to stop, and that's going to be enough, and all of that. But our goals change sometimes, so we'll see.
No, yeah, no. So the good news is you have options, and to me, like every real estate deal, I want as many options as possible. And it sounds like you approach it the same way. We can do long term rentals, we can do short
Yeah.
term rentals, we could do a cash out refi, we could pay it off. We could like options are the best thing in this game because,
I know.
yeah, yeah,
That's a
markets.
good point. I think that's a risky part of short-term rentals is when you buy it to be a short-term rental. I think they're, I probably don't think it's as risky as lenders do, but there's some risk to it. I feel as though it's becoming in some places, especially very saturated. I think there's a lot of regulations that aren't enforced. It's really easy to look at an area and think because there are a lot of short-term rentals that it is legal to do short-term rentals and then buy that way. And you assume a valuation based on short-term rental income. It can get really dicey. So that's why I like to look at things like this building. And if it works as a long term, then good, because I always have that to fall back on. I don't have to fall back on traveling nurses or
Yeah,
whatever.
right, right. And I'm glad you pointed that out because regulations can change because you're basically running a hotel in a non-hotel zoned area, and
Mhm.
cities can crack down and say, guys, no more short-term rentals, or hey, you have to get a short-term rental permit and you got to pay this ridiculous amount of tax.
Yeah.
And you're like, why am I doing all this? Let's just turn it back to long term. You want to make sure
Mhm.
the numbers still work when you switch it back to long term. Like if you're evaluating a short-term rental, make sure it works as a long-term rental in the numbers.
Yeah.
That would be my
Agreed.
advice.
Mhm.
So anyone, what's your go-to advice if someone comes to you and says, Lauren, I like your podcast. I want to be in your shoes. Where do I get started? How do you sort of ease people into sort of building this life of financial freedom?
The first thing to do is take stock of where you are. And it's very easy to think that you know what you're spending and what you're making. But unless you've ever really sat down and analyzed that to see what is coming in versus what is going out and where is that difference, right? How much is it? And what am I doing with that? Hopefully there is a difference, right? I think the first thing in order to know where you want to go, you have to know where you are to start. And then once I know where I am, then I would set those goals and I would make them manageable goals and I would make them, I think you should do your retirement accounts first, right? At least get the match in a 401k. Again, this is very US based, but
Yeah,
other countries have things like this too. Then do your Roth IRA, at least some. And then to kind of decide from there, once you kind of have that foundation set, keep your expenses where they are, make a little more money, right? Get some certifications, read some books, do some webinars, get mentors, learn more, increase your income as much as possible, keep your lifestyle the same. So you're growing what you're investing all of the time. And once you get those retirement foundations and of course an emergency fund set, I mean, it's all kind of cliche advice, but it is really good. Then figure out what you want to do to invest the rest, right? Are you going to do an after tax brokerage account? Are you going to get into real estate? Are you going to do crypto? There's a lot of things that you can do with it, but that's what I tell people when they ask me. And I always say house hack, right? When you
yeah,
buy a
yeah,
house, live in part of it, rent the rest out. Or you can do like extreme house hacking or whatever it is we're doing, rental jumping, where
yeah.
you don't even have a home almost.
Okay, let's come up with a name. Is it rotating rentals, landlord hopping? uh, uh,
I don't know. A hyper house hack. I have
yeah,
no
yeah,
idea.
yeah.
I don't know.
Nomadic. I don't know, house hacking or something. I've got to come up with something because this is a new trend, and it's a trend I support. I like it. It's very entrepreneurial.
Mhm.
I want to also piggyback up what you were saying. I love the building the foundation. I think learning close look at where's your money going, and then learning to redirect some of those unnecessary expenses into like your retirement fund accounts. That's an exercise of learning to control your money and understanding how money works and grows. And I want to throw on there that don't compare yourself to other people, because I think a lot of people will look at your success and be like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. But you're not even 10 years into a plan.
Right.
You're like 5, 6 years into this. And so um, don't say I've got to be Lauren at Adulting is Easy. Say, hey,
Sure.
let's just start with one property We're going to learn a lot. Let's start with funding a retirement account. We're going to learn a lot. Like any step in that direction of achieving personal finance, it's a difficult first step, and it's going to be a learning exercise. But then you're going to master it quickly, and you're going to do one more step. One foot in front of the others. So, um,
Yeah, that's a great ad. I always say, and like I was just talking about tracking, like know where you stand, right? Your income, your expenses, but I also like tracking net worth to kind of know where you're going. And I always say, compare yourself to where you were. Don't compare yourself to other people
yeah,
around you, right? Because, and we say this on spaces all the time, where don't compare your step A to somebody's step M
yeah.
or Z or whatever. It's not comparing. You need to compare apples to apples. And the only way to do that is compare your current self with your past self.
Yeah, exactly. Right, right. You're writing your chapter 1 right now, and someone else is writing their chapter 20, just like you said. And
Mm.
um, it's no matter how long you do this, there's always going to be people more successful than you. And but just getting started. This is all about you. It's not your image. It's not what you want to project to other people. It's changing your own personal life and being responsible. Like no one's going to care about your money more than you. So you gotta jump on it.
Yep.
Um, so moving forward, what are you looking to accomplish? What will it take for you to leave your day job?
There will be very quickly here, there will be a tipping point in terms of logistics and management of the short-term rentals where I need to leave my job to effectively do that,
Yeah, yeah,
handle the reviews and everything like that. Or I will need to hire somebody to help me with that. I think that tipping point will come fairly soon.
yeah.
If we wanted to, say, flip the other 3 long-term rentals that we have in this building and the one other long-term rental that we have to short-term, that would for sure do it. We may hit that tipping point sooner rather than later. I mean, my overall goal is to not have a full-time job by the time I'm 35.
And you're 32 now?
Ideally, it would be like 33, which is next year.
Okay. Oh, 3-year
And
plan. Nice.
and then my husband to be,
Yeah.
completely done by the time he's 40 and he's 29. So, and some of that is he's still building his
Right.
business.
Right.
And
Right.
I think maybe he will go kind of part-time, maybe take Fridays off or, something like that, between now and 40. But, the health insurance and things like that, we'd like to keep him working till he's 40.
Again, it comes back to options on how many days you work, where you work, how long you work. This all builds options for you. We got a comment on YouTube. Wanted to read it, and maybe we can discuss here. Any idea where to get a template for your rental contract and lease agreement? And any recommendations for an app or company to use for screening tenants and managing rent payments? I assume this is not short-term rental. This is probably more of the long-term rental.
Mhm.
How do you approach this?
So what you should do to get a lease agreement is you should meet with a lawyer and pay the few $100s or whatever it is for a lease, right? So it's specific to your property and rock solid and things like that. When I was getting started, I did not do that. I took a lease from a mentor of mine and my parents who had a long-term rental, and I kind of put them together and wrote them up that way. Um, Even with the leases that we have here, I took that same lease and then I added the parts from the existing lease that I liked. And I think a lot of people do it that way. I've
Yeah.
also bought one of the Bigger Pockets books. I think the book on managing rental properties, the one that Brandon Turner wrote with his wife. And when you buy that book, you get their templates as well. So I have a pretty good lease, but I probably should take it to my lawyer and get it actually legitimized.
Yeah, I mean, as a realtor and an investor myself, the realtor who helped you buy the property, they're going to have access to lease templates too. So you can buy
Yeah.
those lease templates, or they would provide them to you for free. And then, yeah, it would cost no more than I would imagine $200 to have an attorney review it if you want. But I do the exact same thing that you do. Whenever I buy a property that has a renter in it, you get the lease, and I have to oblige by the lease until that lease ends, and then I submit my own lease. But what I've been doing over 22 years of real estate investing is, ooh, I like the way this person
Yeah.
does, termites, and I like this way this person does, repairs, and I've Frankensteined
Yep.
all these good ideas over the years of different people's sort of ideas. So you'll probably do that, and it's state by state specific on what you can and cannot put in a lease.
Mhm.
Um, You can also just Google your state lease template. You're going to get a lot of options on there. There's no right or wrong way to write a lease. This is your own company. You can write it. The only thing you cannot do, to Bry, who asked this question, is you can't put in a lease. You can't contract your way around the law. So if the law says you've got to give 60 days notice for your tenant to move out and your lease says 30 days notice, that doesn't, upend the law. Like the law will always default. So it's really knowing what the law is, and your realtor will have access most likely to their brokerages templates or their realtor association templates that are to the law. And
and something that I will add is we do have a renter's agreement for our short-term rentals. We use a reservation system called Owner Res, and so everyone who books our places does sign a renter's agreement. So they lease it for like the few days or whatever. And, it says it has things like house rules in there. I also collect a security deposit. And as part of the lease, or the renter's agreement, I should say, I can keep the security deposit for rules violations as well. So just FYI, you can do that as well.
So Owner Res, is that also like you make that as a requirement on Airbnb or VRBO for them to fill out?
Yeah. It's in my rules. They need to sign the renter's agreement within 24 hours of booking, and the security deposit is in there and things like that. And in like 150 bookings or so in the last 14 months as we've been doing this, I've used it. I've had to use it one time, and it was this past weekend. So,
but on your long-term, rentals, do you use any other software?
I don't. So far what we have are in these we only have four long-term rentals. They're all inherited. So we haven't had a lot of choice in them. And when I've had long-term tenants before, I had a property manager that did the screening and things like that for me.
How do you collect rents?
So, check.
Oh, wow. Okay.
My tenants are a little more old school, and they send me checks.
So software that I've used, there's cozy.co that just got bought by apartments.com. I've used Appfolio, Propertyware. There are tons of software companies out there. Typically it's free if you only have one or two properties. But then as you grow your portfolio, you get to 3, 4, 5, then there is a fee. I love those software programs. Just Google what, different ones, but I just give you a list of a few of them. And what I like about them is they'll collect rent for you. And so a lot of people feel like that's awkward. Too, it's all digital. So it's automatic deposits. And typically my tenants prefer that. They don't have to remember, but the system sends them a reminder, a week before, a day before, a confirmation, we got your rent. It automatically adds the late fee if they haven't paid rent. And then I got one of the more robust ones at Buildium as well. And you could create all sorts of workflows. Like, hey, if someone has a plumbing issue, it would automatically send an email to the plumber, or it would just provide the plumber's phone number.
So cool.
So maybe something for you to look into. Well, if you got property managers.
Well, a couple of my tenants don't have internet. Like it's and one of them doesn't have a bank account. It's like that. So in the future.
Well, that's the thing is, this Bry who asked this question, you can do all the research and you might find a property that a tenant doesn't have internet access or doesn't want internet access or doesn't have traditional banking and gets paid in cash or wants to pay you in cryptocurrency, like whatever it is. Who knows what the problems of the future are going to be, but there's really not one size fits all.
I think I'm a lot more systematized on my short-term rentals. That's where my passion lies. I like that side of the business. I think it's fun. And I've allowed my processes to follow my passion, and I probably should become more process-oriented in the long-term side as well. It hasn't been my focus for the last year.
Well, if you've got, it sounds like no system is a system that's working for you. And at some point you'll learn that oh, we need a system, or let's do it this way. So
Yeah,
it's all learning lesson,
of course.
and it shows to go. What I always say is because people want to, like, how do I be a landlord? They get nervous, they're scared. Do I need a landlord license? And my typical response is think of every landlord you've ever had in your life, and how inept they were, how much of an idiot they were, how unresponsive you were. That's the bar. That's your bar. And so as long as what I found is I just try to reply to everyone within 24 hours, and they love me. Like, oh my God, you read my email? Like, I'm like, yeah, like
That is a low bar.
yeah, yeah.
Whereas, like on the short term side, they're like, if you wait an hour, they're like, "Why didn't you call me back?" I'm like, "I'm not a hotel. I'm just one
Oh,
person."
that's what, yes, that's what got me out of short-term rentals.
You know?
A guy showed up at Friday for like a 3-day weekend. Of course, the AC went out. Hot summer in Atlanta.
Sure. Yeah.
And it was like, I think it was over 4th of July. And it was like, hey, I need, AC went out. I need an HVAC guy. I'm like, okay, great. He'll be there Tuesday, which I know you're leaving, Monday. I want to write you a 0 review, or you give me free lodging. And it's like, if I had a long-term tenant and I said the guy's going to be there Tuesday, they'd be thrilled, right? Like, I get
Yeah.
it. That's the fastest someone's going to come
I
out on
know.
a holiday weekend. But I've ruined that guy's vacation. So it's either, and you don't
I
want a
know.
bad review, right? It's
I
all
know.
about your 5-star reviews online.
I know we have that situation right now. Our jacuzzi's out, and it's like the guy's here 11 days, and they're coming on like day 10 to fix it. Like it is what it is. My renter's agreement says any amenity is not guaranteed, and you're acknowledging by signing this, and so people
That's
have
smart.
been overall very gracious to me. We had a roof done on one of our cottages, and the odds of this are just incredible. But they dropped something on the ceiling, and you can see it's like there's one light in the vicinity, and you can see right exactly they definitely cut that
Yeah.
cord to that light. Like of all the places they could have dropped it. And so, there's a light in the kitchen studio, there's a light in the kitchen, there's a light over the bed, and the light over the bed is out. And so we had, two sets of guests that were coming, and I was like, here's a fan, here's a lamp. I am so sorry. I will refund your cleaning fee. And they're like, for the most part, people seem to be truly understanding
Yeah.
that if they see your reviews, like I'm a super host and stuff, if they see your reviews and they're all like 4 and 5-star reviews, that like this is truly a rare thing, and it really was just bad luck that it happened to them.
Yeah.
Most part, people have been really nice to me about it.
What I like is that you made that adjustment to the amenities, because I would imagine you didn't have that when you started, right? You didn't say that.
My mentor did.
Oh,
No, my
okay.
mentor,
Okay.
she's all over it. And we had our first party this past weekend. And so that renter's agreement was written very well for that. And I'm like, how many parties have you had at your place? She's like, a handful. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I can tell from how this is written. So
You're going to get better at landlording. You're going to get better at property manager. It just
yeah.
goes back to Bryce's question. Like, you're not going to have every caveat on day one, and you're going to learn as you go.
No, and you've learned things before, right?
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah,
how I think of it. Have you had challenges in your life that you have overcome? Right? So
yeah, right.
stop being scared of a broken toilet,
Yeah,
right? Like or an AC, you're gonna get it fixed.
yeah.
If you've handled every challenge that's come your way, why would landlording be any different?
Right, right, right. And yeah, like some of the things I've added because of lessons I've learned is some language that says something along like, when you've entered this property, there's no cockroaches, there's no pests, right? And so you get one call to the pest control company. Here's the phone number, but anything after that, you're responsible for. Like,
Mhm.
there's ways. And like,
Yeah.
someone flushed bunch of crap in the toilet,
Yep.
and it's like,
Yep.
you are now responsible. If something you've done clogged the toilets, you are responsible for the plumbing bill. And
Yep.
what happens is people read that and they seem to become better tenants. But if you just have this handshake agreement, it's anything goes, haha. But if you like make them initial every single thing, and
Yeah.
a lot of work up front, and crafting that good lease is going to save you so much time in the
Yeah.
long run. Yeah.
Yep. Agreed.
Um, so let's switch gears a bit here. Podcasting. Is your goal with podcasting? Are you just trying to spread the message? Are you trying to turn that into a business? Because you're very entrepreneurial as it is, and this is just one more sort of spoke in the wheel of your busy life.
It started as I was going to create the podcast, the website, the Twitter account. I'll probably expand to YouTube and Instagram and things like that in the future. But it started as I was going to become a financial coach in
Okay.
the future. That was what I wanted to do. Now I don't, because because it's basically like an hourly thing. As much as I want to help people, that's not the most scalable way to help people. So I've gone away from that vision a little bit. I would love to get to the point where I have enough listenership to have ads so that it's,
Right.
more than paying for itself would be fantastic. It's a way to document things. It's a way to meet people. And I've had a couple of people ask me about it, and I may do it as maybe write a book and use kind of the podcast and the blogs as a repository of information to write a book. So the short answer is I don't really know
Yeah.
yet. But I believe in momentum,
Yep.
and I believe in, keeping things going, and good things will happen if you stay consistent and you do the best you can, and you have a good time doing it.
Yeah, I mean, you're building a following, you're building a community, and building trust, and all those things can be very, very powerful to any business that you, yeah. So, if anyone's listening, Lauren's podcast is Adulting is Easy. You can follow her at Adulting is Easy on all the social media channels. Anything else you'd like to share before we wrap this up, Lauren?
I think you basically covered it. The one thing I will say is you just have to get started. Don't be scared to take that first step. And there are a lot of people out there who are thinking about getting started in real estate or starting a business or whatever, and they never do. And I think very few people have regretted starting, but a
Yeah.
lot of people regret not starting.
Right, right. And there, you have so many mentors, you, me, we're Twitter. Like if you look at real estate Twitter online,
Mhm.
everyone's willing to give real estate advice. Mostly it's consistent, but you're going to have a lot of people in the space wanting to see you succeed, helping you succeed. You're not on your own, even though it might feel like your own. A lot of mentors in the space. So reach out and follow us, follow both of us, and because you're doing these Twitter spaces, which are very educational and rewarding. And so guys, if you want free real estate education or just personal finance, budgeting education, follow Adulting is Easy. You're gonna learn everything from Laura, and she's very available online. And thank you for sharing such great positivity and motivation out there.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, AC. It's been fun.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in at the House of AC. Follow along. Check out Linktree / the House of AC to kind of all the stuff that we talk about on the show if you want to learn more or see past episodes. They're all on my YouTube channel as well. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time, guys.